You don't really grasp how fragile your illusion of control is until someone just walks in and takes it away. That was me in my driveway, coffee still warm in my hand, the sun just starting to pry open the sky, and then the empty space where my Lamborghini should have been hit me like a physical blow. The car I'd poured years into, the one that turned heads and made people stare, was gone. At first I tried to laugh it off. Towed? A prank? A mistake? But the gut feeling said otherwise. It began, of course, with the Karens, the notorious HOA family on the corner. Everyone in the neighborhood knew who they were, people who treated rules as suggestions and entitlement like a birthright. It wasn't only Karen. Her son was a different breed of reckless, charming smile, chaos trailing behind him like smoke. I'd had minor run-ins, little annoyances I shrugged away. Nothing prepared me for this. Seeing that empty patch of concrete, my stomach dropped. I marched over to their house. Karen sat on her porch like she owned the world, latte in hand, radiating that composed, superior air. I demanded answers, trying to keep the tremor out of my voice, but failing. Her reaction was exquisite arrogance. Oh, my son. He just borrowed it. He takes things sometimes. Don't worry about it. Borrowed? The word hit me wrong. My Lamborghini, everything it symbolized, was stolen, and Karen acted as if it were business as usual. My blood boiled. This wasn't a neighborhood spat. This was a confrontation with someone who believed privilege erased responsibility, someone who assumed rules existed for other people. I called the police, certain they'd help. Karen, predictably, had an answer ready. She brandished her HOA status as if it were armor, insisting her son was just a kid and I was overreacting. Each sentence she uttered dripped with condescension. My every attempt to get traction against their excuses met with smiles and dismissive waves. But I wouldn't relent. That car was more than metal and leather. It was late nights, sacrifices, the payoff for years of work. Karen and her son had treated it like trash. By the end of the day, I made a decision. If I wanted my Lamborghini back and wanted to teach them that privilege isn't protection, I'd have to outthink them. Police had hit a dead end. Waiting for justice wasn't an option. Karen's family lived behind a veneer of connections and smiles that made them seem untouchable. If I wanted my car, I'd need to pry apart that veneer and find the weak spots. So I started to dig. I traced the Lambo's path that morning. Neighborhood security footage was a mixed bag, outdated cameras, intermittent footage. But persistence dug up what I needed. Hours of scrubbing through grainy clips revealed my suspicion. Karen's son had driven the car to a storage unit on the far edge of town. The storage facility was unremarkable, rows of dull metal doors, but my pulse quickened. This wasn't petty theft. It felt like a provocation. Challenges demand strategy, patience, and a little cunning. I sketched out the layout, watched comings and goings, timed security rounds, and marked doors that seemed off. I blended in, pretending casual interest while my brain ran scenarios at full speed. Meanwhile, Karen launched her familiar campaign of pressure. She flooded neighborhood chats with passive-aggressive posts, thinly veiled threats, and sly accusations that painted me as the troublemaker. Classic maneuver, gaslight, shift blame, protect the golden child. Instead of deterring me, her behavior hardened my resolve. Each smug comment, each staged photo was fuel. I couldn't let them get away with this. I knew a direct confrontation was dangerous. Karen thrived on public displays of moral authority, ready to twist any mistake into proof of my instability. So I assembled a small circle of trusted allies to document without escalating danger. We moved methodically, turning chaos into a plan. Every variable mattered. Time of day, the storage layout, the sun's patterns, even Karen's predictable social maneuvers. By week's end, the picture was clear. The Lambo was there, tucked away in plain sight, and Karen's son walked around convinced he'd pulled off the perfect crime. He had no idea who he was dealing with. I wasn't just an angry neighbor. I was someone with nothing left to lose and everything to reclaim. And now, I was ready to make my move. The plan ahead was bold, risky, maybe even a little reckless, but I couldn't back down. Karen and her son needed to learn that privilege doesn't make you untouchable, and arrogance always comes with a price. By this point, I had every detail memorized. I knew the security patterns at the storage facility, the shifts of the guards, and even Karen's predictable routines. Her son, drunk on his own confidence, thought he was beyond consequence. That very overconfidence would be his undoing. This wouldn't be a battle of strength. It would be one of patience, precision, and perfect timing. For several days, I watched quietly, running errands, pretending to mind my own business while tracking their every move. Karen continued her little campaign of passive-aggressive warfare, sending veiled messages through HOA group chats and gossiping to anyone who'd listen. She brandished her so-called influence like it was a weapon, convinced that everyone would bow to her will. But I'd learned something she hadn't. Pride always cracks under pressure. When the night came, everything had to unfold like clockwork. I brought in 2 close friends, reliable, level-headed, and ready to help without question. We parked a few blocks away, hidden in the shadows, waiting for the perfect window. Karen's son had gone out, and the facility was in its quietest hour. My heart pounded, but I kept my breathing steady. Every sense sharpened as adrenaline coursed through me. At the signal, we moved. Silent steps across gravel. No wasted motion. When we reached the storage unit, I crouched down, the metal door glinting faintly in the low light. One glance at my friends, one deep breath, then a careful twist of the lock. Click. The sound was beautiful. There it was. My Lamborghini, gleaming under the dull fluorescent lights, its metallic surface shimmered like it had been waiting just for me. For a moment, everything else faded, until I saw a shadow shift at the end of the aisle. Karen's son. He'd come back early, probably to bask in his stolen glory. But when his eyes met mine, the smirk that had lived on his face for as long as I could remember vanished. He froze, disbelief spreading across his features as I stood there, calm, collected, and absolutely done being his victim. He tried to posture, to bluff, to reclaim that false sense of control. But with my friends at my side, he had nowhere to run and no one left to impress. His confidence cracked. The swagger evaporated. For the first time, he looked like what he really was, a spoiled kid realizing that the world didn't revolve around him. The Lambo was untouched, safe. And as I stood there, the rush of victory mingled with a deep, satisfying calm. But I knew it wasn't over yet. Karen still believed she could manipulate the world around her, that her status could bend reality. She needed a lesson, too, one that no amount of charm or HOA power could talk her out of. With my car back in the garage and my evidence secured, I went to work. Every surveillance clip, every timestamp, every smug post she'd made online, I compiled it all into a neatly organized record. Then I did something Karen never expected. I went through the proper channels. I requested a formal HOA meeting, ensuring every member of the board would be there. The same group she'd manipulated for years would now see her without her shield of arrogance. When the day arrived, Karen walked in just like always, latte in hand, confidence painted across her face. But the moment she sat down, she realized the atmosphere was different. Her practiced smile faltered. I presented everything, calmly and professionally. The footage, the logs, the lies, her usual tricks, the feigned politeness, the cutting remarks, the attempts to twist the narrative, all failed under the weight of hard evidence. The board saw everything for what it was. Her son's actions weren't just misunderstandings, they were crimes. Her smirks dissolved into silence as the reality she'd been running from finally caught up. Watching her squirm, realizing that her reign of intimidation had ended, wasn't about revenge. It was about balance, justice. She had built her kingdom on the idea that rules applied only to others, but that illusion shattered right there in that HOA room. Her son was held accountable, and Karen herself was forced to face the humiliation she'd long avoided. No shouting, no grand scene. Just the quiet, irrefutable truth finally taking center stage. As I drove my Lamborghini home that evening, the sun dipped low over the horizon, painting the sky in streaks of gold and red. I couldn't help but reflect. This wasn't just a story about a stolen car. It was about entitlement, arrogance, and the belief that privilege could erase consequence. Karen had lived her life certain she was untouchable. But she learned the hard way that accountability doesn't discriminate. The neighborhood would remember this moment, not because of my car, but because it exposed the truth behind the facade she'd built. Entitlement might make you bold, but it doesn't make you immune. And sometimes all it takes is someone willing to stay calm, patient, and relentless to remind people like Karen that actions have consequences. The Lamborghini was back. Justice had been served. And as for the Karens, let's just say they wouldn't be testing me or anyone else again anytime soon. If you enjoyed this wild HOA Karen story, don't forget to hit that like button. And if you want to hear more unbelievable tales like this one, subscribe and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's coming next. And hey, tell me in the comments, what would you have done if this happened to you? I'll be reading every single one.